Welcome back, dear students of class 7. Uh, Today we will start with chapter 1, computer hardware components. Having been completed chapter 2, that is number system, and chapter 3, that is computer viruses. Okay, having been completed these two chapters, we now move on to chapter 1, which is computer hardware components. Okay, this is part 1 of this chapter. Okay, so let's look at what this chapter has got for us. Okay, now, students, computers, as you know, are the machines. Computers are the machines that perform specific tasks according to the set of instructions or programs. Now, students, you know that a computer cannot work on its own. Okay, any computer or any machine, it cannot work on its own. It requires what? It requires set of instructions or programs. Who creates these programs? The programmer. The programmer creates these set of instructions or programs, and according to the instructions the computer will perform specific tasks. Okay, now back in the earlier days, what used to happen is that computers were only used mostly by scientists and engineers, and they used it for complex calculations, and that is the reason they were very costly during those times. But nowadays computers are well within reach of every working person. Nowadays almost everyone is using computers. Okay, this class, is you might be watching this video on your computer or on your mobile phone, which is also a computer only. Okay, so computer has virtually become a need in every sphere of life. Okay, students. Now our computers, they work with an interaction of hardware and software. Okay, the computers, they work with an interaction of hardware and software. These are two most important components, or these are the you know two major components of a computer: hardware and software. Now, what is hardware? Hardware refers to the physical parts of the computer that you can see and touch. Okay, so any part of a computer which you can see with your eyes and touch with your hands are called as hardware. Okay, this chapter is about the hardware components or hardware part of the computer. Okay, what about software then? Okay, let's briefly take a look at what a software is. Okay, students, software refers to the instructions or the programs that tell the hardware what to do. Softwares are not physical parts, but softwares are stored on physical medium such as a pen drive or hard disk. Okay, so what is software? The instructions that we give to the computer to perform certain tasks are called as software. Okay, they are not physical part. You cannot touch a software. Okay, but the softwares are stored on physical storage mediums like pen drive and hard disks. Okay, students, then what does a software do? A software enhances the capability of hardware. Okay, it enhances the capabilities of hardware, and it directs or tells the computer to perform a specific type of activity. Whatever instructions are present inside the software, the computer will perform that kind of operation based on those instructions. Okay. Now, hardware and software, they are interdependent. What is the meaning of interdependent? Interdependent means they are dependent on each other. Okay. How hardware needs the software to operate. Okay. Without software, hardware is of no use, and software cannot be utilized without the supporting hardware. So these two things are very essential to each other. Okay. Without hardware, software cannot be of any use, and without software, hardware is of no use. That's why hardware and software of a computer are interdependent. Okay. So this was a brief summary of this. Okay. Now, students, let's talk about the next topic, which is anatomy of a computer. What is the meaning of this word anatomy? Please note it down. Anatomy means study of structure of something. Okay. Study of structure of human body is called as anatomy of human body. In the same manner, study of structure of computer is called as anatomy of computer. So in this topic, we are going to study anatomy of computer, which means we are going to study the structure of computer in detail. Okay. So we know that a computer comprises of two major components, hardware and software. Okay. Hardware. What is hardware? The physical components of a computer which we can touch and feel are known as hardware. Okay, students, we have already gone through this definition of hardware. Let's go through it once again. What is hardware? The physical components of a computer which we can touch and feel are known as hardware. Okay. Now, the hardware of a computer can be further categorized into two groups: internal hardware and external hardware. Okay, students, external hardware. So, what is hardware? The physical components of the computer which we can touch and feel. And further, hardware can be categorized into two parts: internal hardware and external hardware. Okay. The next important component of a computer is the software. So what is software? Again, let's talk about software. Software is a set of programs which controls the internal operations of a computer and instructs the computer about the work to be done. Basically, software instructs the hardware components of the computer what tasks they have to perform. Okay. And it also controls the internal operations of a computer. For example, MS Excel is a software. MS Word is a software. In the same manner, Windows 7 is also a operating system which is a software. Okay. Now again, software can be further categorized into two main categories: system software and application software. Okay, students, let's go through this once again. Okay, let's go through this once again. Software is a set of programs which controls the internal operations of a computer and instructs the computer about the work to be done. Okay, this is software, and software can be further categorized into two main categories: system software and application software. Okay, students, now let's move on. Now, hardware and software, as we know, are interdependent. Yes, they are interdependent. Okay, without these two components, a computer cannot work. Okay, so hardware requires software to function, and software requires hardware. Okay, without hardware and software, a computer cannot work. Okay, for example, without the driver of a hardware. Now, driver is a type of software which is required, which is required in order for any hardware to work inside your computer. Okay, so without the driver of a hardware and OS kernel. What is OS kernel? An OS kernel is a program which directly interacts with the hardware. Okay, it is a software which directly interacts with the hardware. Okay, without these two things, without the driver and the OS kernel, we cannot use hardware. Similarly, without a processor or your CPU or your microprocessor and a memory, it is impossible for the software to run. Okay, now see, the driver and the OS kernel, these both are softwares without which hardware cannot be used. Okay, and processor or the CPU or the microprocessor and memory like the RAM, ROM, okay, all these are hardware. So without hardware, we cannot run the software also. So that's why hardware and software are interdependent on each other's functioning. Okay, students, I hope this is clear to you. Now we had seen that there are two types of hardware. No? There are two major hardware can be categorized into two parts: internal hardware and external hardware. So let's learn what is internal hardware. Okay, let me first define to you what is internal hardware. Okay, the hardware components that are installed within the CPU cabinet are called as internal hardware. Okay, there is a part of a computer which is called as a CPU cabinet. Okay, what are the examples of internal hardware? CPU, RAM, ROM, disk drives like hard disk drive, Blu-ray disk drives, CD drive, DVD drives, the motherboard of the computer, the network card, the sound card, the video card, etc. are all examples of internal hardware. Now, students, as the name suggests, internal, it comes from the word inside. Okay, so whatever hardware components are installed inside the CPU cabinet are called internal hardware. Let's take a brief look at this. Okay, now students, look at this part of the computer. What have you studied till now? What is this part called as? You will say that, sir, this is the CPU or the central processing unit. But students, know this is not the CPU. It is CPU cabinet. Sorry, CPU's cabinet. This box is called as the CPU's cabinet. It is not the CPU. Till now, in the smaller classes, you were made to study that this is the CPU, but no, this is the CPU's cabinet. Inside this cabinet, is the CPU. CPU is installed inside this cabinet. Okay, so that's why CPU is an internal hardware. So whatever hardware parts are installed inside this cabinet are called as internal hardware. Again, let's see. When you open the CPU cabinet, you will find something like this. See, there are different parts: the power supply, okay, the expansion card slots, hard disk, okay, this is the, then you have the CD or the DVD ROMs, then you have the this green colored part, this green colored board which is called as the motherboard or the main board. Okay, so all these hardware components, this fan, okay, all these hardware components which are inside the CPU cabinet are called as the internal hardware. Okay, students. So again, let us formally define what is a internal hardware. The hardware components or the hardware parts that are installed within the CPU cabinet are called as the internal hardware. Okay, so this is these are all the parts which are inside the CPU cabinet, and all these are called as the internal